Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Broker problems continue to plague owner-operators. I'll discuss one case of that, plus information about reasonable suspicion training and more with Tom Crowley and Joe Biggs of OOIDA's Business Services Department. It's harvest season, and for many families, it's a busy time of year. But what happens if you're unable to harvest your crops because of illness or injury? An organization called Farm Rescue can help. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford reports. And finally, Wisconsin lawmakers are considering whether to establish a grant program to help train more truck drivers. Scott Thompson gets the details on that and more from our state legislative expert, Keith Goebel. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Mark. Good news at the pumps. Diesel prices are down 5 cents a gallon. The Energy Information Administration says the average for a gallon of diesel dropped to $4.44. The West Coast minus California saw the biggest drop of 8 cents a gallon. New England and the Gulf Coast both saw a decrease of 2 cents. ProMiles.com has a daily report, and this morning showed prices dipping in all 10 regions, with the overall average dipping 6 cents compared to last week to $4.43 a gallon. 2 new co-sponsors have signed on to a Senate bill that would stop FMCSA from issuing a speed limiter mandate. Representatives Chuck Edwards of North Carolina and Zachary Nunn of Iowa are now 2 of the 30 co-sponsors. The DRIVE Act, introduced by Representative Josh Burkeen of Oklahoma, would prohibit the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration from putting into law any rule or regulation mandating speed limiters on commercial motor vehicles. Last year, FMCSA issued an advance notice of supplemental proposed rulemaking that considers requiring commercial motor vehicles with a gross vehicle weight of more than 26,000 pounds to be equipped with speed-limiting devices. There was a 3.5% decrease in load volume to just over 1.1 million loads last week. Robert Rouse with DAT says we can expect to have a similar volume of loads for the next 3 to 4 weeks before we see a traditional seasonal bump in freight.
When we look at the number of trucks on the DAT load board, they also decreased by around 2%, down to 389,000 trucks. Most of the decrease in trucks last week was actually in reefers, though. They decreased about 5% from the prior week, and vans and flatbeds only came down about 1%. So that mostly was reefers that were doing other things. The last few weeks, we've seen diesel prices around the country start to drop by over 15 cents a gallon. And even now it just came out that it's all the way down to $4.44 a gallon. While that is really great news, diesel prices are going to be a major concern again coming up.
Rouse says national benchmark broker-to-carrier spot rates without fuel decreased between 2 cents per mile for vans and reefer. He says flatbed is holding steady. A truck driver was killed over the weekend after a freight train derailed on Interstate 25 in Colorado. CBS News reports that the 60-year-old Compton, California truck driver was crushed when 30 cars of a 124-car coal train derailed Sunday afternoon. The derailment caused part of the bridge to collapse. Also, according to CBS News, National Transportation Safety Board investigators were on site Monday to attempt to establish what went wrong. Early indications appear to indicate the train derailed before the bridge came down. Nick Henriksen is a state senator in Pueblo County, whose district includes the area of the derailment. He spoke with CBS News.
The safety statistics are blinking red. Train derailments have become somewhat more frequent, and there's been, somewhat of an increase in the severity of the accidents when they do derail. So it's important that we get this right now because the potential for health impacts, for ecological impacts, for community-wide damage is a lot more significant.
BNSF Railway was operating the train. The rail company said there were no injuries to crew members. The comment deadline is quickly approaching on a request for comment on how to determine if a motor carrier is safe. In late August, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration asked the industry to weigh in. Now, several organizations in the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance are asking FMCSA to extend the comment period by a month, while the American Bus Association is asking for an additional 60 days. CVSA said an extension would allow more organizations to provide feedback on this critical issue. FMCSA published an advance notice of proposed rulemaking on August 29th that asked for comments about possible changes to the safety fitness determination process. It added that this advance notice of proposed rulemaking seeks input regarding new methodologies that would determine when a motor carrier is not fit to operate commercial motor vehicles in or affecting interstate commerce. The agency gave the public 60 days to comment, which makes October 30th the current deadline. A probe has been opened into whether or not Cruise automated driving system-equipped vehicles are exercising appropriate caution around pedestrians in the roadway. According to a document from USDOT's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Office of Defects Investigation has received reports of incidents in which Cruise autonomous cars have encroached on pedestrians present in or entering roadways, including pedestrian crosswalks. This could increase the risk of a collision with a pedestrian, which may result in severe injury or death. The report states that the total number of relevant pedestrian incidents is unknown. ODI is opening this preliminary evaluation to determine the scope and severity of the potential problem and to fully assess the potential safety risks. Fall is in full swing, but some departments of transportation are already prepping for winter. This week, Ohio DOT spoke with WHIO about its preparations for the snowy season ahead. ODOT's Public Information Officer Mandy Dillon told the news station that mechanics are doing 150-point inspections on all of their plow trucks and loaders to make sure everything is running correctly. Meanwhile, Iowa DOT spoke with KIWA Radio about its preparations for winter, which doesn't officially start until December 21st, but Iowa DOT's Winter Operations Administrator treats October 15th as the first day.
Our staff start reporting winter road conditions on 511. They start prepping, finalizing equipment prep, calibration on our equipment. There's a litany of tasks that they have to do and complete and have ready to go around that October 15th timeframe.
The National Weather Service is expected to release its winter outlook this week. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is reminding parents to talk to their teenagers about the importance of safe driving. This week is National Teen Driver Safety Week. NHTSA says it's important to be a good role model for your kids behind the wheel and to demonstrate responsible driving behaviors you want your teen to have. The agency suggests conversations about drinking and driving, speeding, distracted driving, and buckling up. It's also important to talk to your teen about safe driving around large trucks, staying out of blind spots, anticipating wide turns, and passing safely are a few topics of discussion that will help everyone stay safe on the road. And finally, a woman in Seattle has claimed the Guinness World Record for having the largest collection of rubber ducks. UPI reports that 54-year-old Charlotte Lee bought her first rubber ducks in 1996 to decorate her bathroom. From then on, friends started buying her rubber ducks for birthday and Christmas gifts. She now has 5,631 ducks and says she's still collecting them. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. Next, I'll discuss some continuing problems with brokers with Tom Crowley and Joe Biggs of OOIDA's Business Services Department, and Ashley Blackford reports on a group that helps farmers in need with harvest season. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline now. Welcome back. Every day, truckers are running into problems and challenges out on the road. Many of those truckers call OOIDA for help, and they often find themselves talking with the association's Business Services Department. Here is some advice on some of the more common topics right now. Are Tom Crowley and Joe Biggs of OOIDA's Business Services. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us on, Mark. Good to be here.
Let's start with one that's apparently leading to some confusion, which is RST certification. And let's start out with what the heck is that, Joe?
RST is the reasonable suspicion training. It is used to help supervisors or people in supervisory roles over drivers to kind of understand and figure out and get clues and context clues on if a driver may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. It's typically used for the reasonable suspicion tests. They need that training to know if what they're seeing qualifies and if they need to send them in for a test.
Okay. So this is anybody who's a supervisor?
Yes. So if you're in a supervisory role above any drivers, the employer shall have you do at least 60 minutes of training on alcohol misuse, 60 minutes on drug-related misuse, and you'll have to go through that at the end of it. Typically, they'll have like a little certificate that you sign that you keep. But if you are in that role over, what a consortium would call the DER, designated employee representative, you're the one who's handling those issues and going to be dealing with the tests and stuff. So you're in that supervisory role, so you have to take this training to know when you would have to maybe send someone in for reasonable suspicion.
And let me say, the reason that this comes up right now is because there are emails floating around. When you're a new carrier and your information goes public on the FMCSA website, on the Safer site, there's folks out there that just data mine that information, and they're sending out emails to every carrier that's getting their authority. Many of them are one-truck operations, one truck, owner-operator, mechanic, all in one. And those folks, they don't take this supervisory training because, they're not in that role. They are the role, of everything. So they don't take this. But we get a lot of calls from folks saying, hey, I'm a one-truck owner-operator. What's the supervisory training I need? You don't need it. But these people are non-discriminate. They'll send this out because they'll take your money. They'll put you through this training or send you the CD or the link, and they'll take your money even though you don't need this. So be leery of that. There's a lot of that goes on.
Right. The only requirement for single owner operators is to be enrolled in a drug and alcohol consortium. You are not required to have this reasonable suspicion training since you are the single owner operator.
Okay. Where do you get this training if you do need it? Let's say you have one or two other trucks.
If you need it, typically you can get it from your drug consortium. I know if you are enrolled in CMCI, which is our drug consortium, they can get you the information you need to get the certification done. If you are not, just reach out to your drug consortium. They should have information or the course itself on where you can get done.
Yeah, and if you're in a consortium that says, I don't know what you're talking about, call us. We know what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, let's move on to another topic here, which is the people that are calling in and saying that Carrier 411 reports are hurting their business. And for folks who maybe have not encountered it before, let's start with what is Carrier 411?
Well, Carrier 411 is a carrier broker reporting service for brokers to report about their issues with carriers or their experiences with carriers, which sounds on the surface well, hey, that's legit. The problem is brokers can report anything on a carrier, and carriers have very limited options to rebuff, dispute, or give any feedback on this. the way it works is Carrier 411 supposedly sends an email to the carrier and says, hey, this broker, had some information on you. Do you want to rebuff it? Well, small carriers, carriers in general, people, a lot of times this stuff goes to your spam or your junk mail. They don't get it for whatever reason. They don't send. I mean, I get probably 50 or 100 emails a day in my personal email. Do I look at every one of them? No. But if you miss this one, you have that 72-hour window to reply to Carrier 411 to post your rebuttal. It doesn't remove any information, but it's a rebuttal only. And after that 72 hours, well, you missed your window. If you didn't post it or rebut it, it doesn't matter. Carrier 411 will, post this information about you without you having any option to rebut it or dispute it. And that hurts a lot of folks. I mean, I know there's a lot of carriers out there, a lot of small carriers out there especially, that know exactly what I'm talking about. They call a broker up to try to find a load, to try to get a load from them. And they said, yeah, we got this load, and they start to work it out. The broker looks them up and said, oh, I can't use you. You got a Carrier 411 report on you. And it's brokers can use this and do use Carrier 411 to blackball, to get back at, to injure a small carrier.
Well, and they also can use it as kind of, a bargaining chip. We've heard that, they call up or they call the broker and they're like, hey, you put this freight guard on me. What can I do to get rid of it? Because they're typically the only ones who can get rid of that is the one who put it on there. And they'll be like, well, I guess I can go ahead and take that off if you take this load over here for me. So they use it in that aspect as a tool to kind of get you to do what they want you to do, maybe for the price they want you to do it at.
Yeah, that definitely happens.
I think they used to call that blackmail.
Blackmail, extortion. Yeah, there's some different words for it. But today they just call it how they do business. It's unfortunate.
Joe, you mentioned Freight Guard. So Carrier 411 isn't the only service offering something like this.
No, Freight Guard is the report that Carrier 411 uses. You'll get Freight Guarded. But there is another one we know of that does do similar reporting. It's newer, so we don't have a whole lot of information on it. But Carrier 411 and Freight Guard are the big
yeah,
one.
And with some of these other, I mean, and there's more than just a couple out there. I mean, there's big money in bundling up all this carrier information and selling it to brokers. Because brokers, they based on some past court rulings, they find themselves on the hook for some carrier activities. So there's a lot of money in the bundling up of the information, selling it to brokers sharing information, trying to limit their liability from onboarding carriers. And then, of course, there's all the scams that go along out there, too. So, there's just small carriers just need to really beware of what's going on, beware of their situation, and I mean, of course, they do the best they can to deliver the loads, but there's a lot of stuff against them. I mean, it's a steep hill to climb for a small carrier. And when you've got reporting entities like this that report this information without verifying it, they just report it and all of a sudden you can't get a load because of it with no verification. It's kind of tough.
Well, let's talk a little bit about a story that you brought to the table, Tom, and this kind of involves a Freight Guard report. Walk us through what happened to this particular trucker.
Okay, well, I got a call the other day from a guy who is a small carrier, and he hauled a load. He was at the delivery point, got there, and the receiver told him, hey, this load, we're not taking this stuff. This was canceled a couple of days ago. And, so here's the carrier under this load at the receiver, calls the broker, and the broker says, all right, well, sit tight. We'll get back to you. We'll let you know what's going on. We'll figure this out. Well, this went on for days. The carrier called the broker multiple times a day. And, small carriers, if you're sitting under one load stagnant, I mean, you're losing money. You can't do that for very long. And in this particular situation, it went on for 4 days. The carrier got pretty pissed off and decided to take the load back to the shipper. And on the way back to the shipper, talked to the broker. The broker got pissed off, said, no, we don't have that cleared yet. He did go ahead and go back to the shipper, and the shipper did agree to take the product back. Well, now the carrier is worried about getting paid. He's already sit there for 4 days. Broker would give him no new rate con sheet, and that's the first thing we tell him. Hey, don't move your truck without a contract, without a rate con. If there's something new, something different, something changed with it, get a new rate con because you operate contractually. Broker wouldn't give him a rate con. He got back there. I mean, he did unload, but he was worried about getting paid. And after the broker, all this crap with the broker, and the broker told him, "Oh, we'll take care of you, man. No problem." He got that stuff off and submitted to his factoring company, got paid from his factoring company. Now he's paying his factoring company back because the broker did not pay him. And they put a freight guard report on him saying he held the load hostage, which was bogus. But, that small carrier is now paying the price for this broker's negligence.
And essentially with that freight guard, they're going to have trouble getting loads.
He is definitely having trouble getting loads. And that's one of the things that goes on. If the broker screws up the appointment times and the carrier ends up sitting for another day or two, I mean, they're just letting the carriers in many instances eat this. They won't give them another rate con. They'll tell them, hey, we'll take care of you. And, these small carriers, they're just little operators. They say, okay, well, broker said it'd take care of me. Without a contract, without a new contract, a new rate con, saying what your layover pay is going to be or what your detention pay is going to be, man, you may be SOL. So, you get that new contract. Talk to that broker and don't move your truck without a contract. I mean, that's the thing. You operate contractually. Get a contract. Get a rate con.
And what do you do in a case like this, let's say like this, where the guy's sitting there for 4 days, broker won't give him a rate con? I mean, sitting tight doesn't sound like much of an option.
It's not. I mean, I tell them at some point you have to make a business decision. You have to decide, am I going to sit here? Am I going to go back? Do you have faith that this broker is going to live up to their word? In this industry today, I don't have a lot of faith in people living up to their word without something to back them up. This individual is in a hard spot. It's set for 4 days. Then he's got the fuel he burnt down there, all the time involved, the 2-day trip down, 2-day trip back, got back there and set for about a half a day. The whole time, the broker was not, the broker made some mistakes on the load and the carrier paid the price. And that's what it really comes down to is, brokers, if they screw up, rarely are they going to take the blame. They're going to pass it off to you, and it's probably you, the small carrier, that won't get paid or will get shorted. It's no skin off the broker's nose. There's new carriers coming into this business all the time. Brokers, they will be abusive, let the carrier swing in the wind, and know that, tomorrow there'll be 10 more to take your place. So that's part of the abuse that goes on out there. I mean, you add on to that all the scams that happen. And small carriers really, really are up against the wall.
Well, and along with that, he said, you got to make a business decision. And he just told you a story where the carrier, the small carrier, did everything right, did everything he was told to do. He's still got this freight guard on him. So you gotta, like he said, you gotta be smart about it. You gotta make the business decision. You don't want to make anybody mad and be like, well, then they're going to freight guard me, when it's very much possible that they're going to do it anyway. So you gotta just know the situation you're in. Try your best to do everything right. But then at the end of the day, it's on you because it's costing you money. It's your business at stake. They're not.
It's unfortunate the way some of this stuff comes down, but and it comes back to, if you're a new carrier, do your due diligence, work with brokers that granted you want new business, but just be careful. Just be careful.
Okay, well, guys, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for the information, and hopefully we'll help some people out.
Thanks for having us on, Mark.
Absolutely, Mark.
I've been talking with Tom Crowley and Joe Biggs of OOIDA's Business Services Department. And folks, if you run into a problem or you have a question about business or compliance issues, call Business Services. The phone number is 816-229-5791. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. more miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off TruckStop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibratech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibratechtvd.com.
Landline Now, welcome back. It's harvest season, which for some can be a stressful time if illness, injury, or a natural disaster strikes a family. A nonprofit organization has grown over the years to help meet the needs of those in desperate times. To speak with me about the organization, Dan Erdman joins me. He is the marketing program manager for Farm Rescue. Dan, can you explain to me what Farm Rescue is?
Absolutely. So Farm Rescue is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Been around since 2005 was when our president and founder, Bill Gross, started the organization. And first year of operations were back in 2006. Bill, again, our president and founder, grew up in the state of North Dakota and grew up on a family farm. And knew at a pretty young age that the farm was not going to be an option for him to continue. So his parents had kind of encouraged him to go on and seek higher education and do something else in life. So Bill became a pilot, and he flies all over the world. Currently works with UPS, and so a lot of long over the ocean flights and making small talk with a co-pilot years ago had mentioned that he wanted to, in retirement, buy a tractor and just go farm to farm and help farm families in a time of crisis. And it was his co-pilot that kind of challenged him back then, why wait until retirement to do that, Bill? And so that was kind of the initial seed that was planted that has grown into Farm Rescue today. And so, again, it started in North Dakota. 2006 was the first year that they planted crops for, again, families going through a major injury, illness, or natural disaster. And those are kind of the three main qualifiers to receive farm rescue assistance. And they've added services and expanded territory as resources and funding and volunteers have grown. And that's the incredible thing is all of the work that we do, it's tangible in-field support, but it's all done by volunteers. And so we have volunteers that come from across the country to the 8 states that we cover in the Midwest. And right now that's Montana, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and then we just launched into Illinois for the first time this year. So again, the whole goal is to help families in a time of crisis, farm families, and hopefully help them continue, operations for years to come and hopefully generations to come.
Wow, that is incredible. Can you talk to me about for those who maybe aren't familiar with farming, I mean, if there is an illness or an injury or some sort of situation, I mean, harvesting these crops or planting these crops, like, they can't wait. Like, they have to happen at certain times.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's truly the fruits of your labor. And it's what every farmer, every farm family, works towards throughout the growing season is that harvest. Again, you reap what you sow, right? Literally in this case. And especially in those family operations, everyone plays an important role. And so you take any single cog out of the wheel, and the impact is it can make or break the operation. And so we really just want to be that stopgap. We want to help bridge that crisis and just get them through that one particular planting season, haying season, harvest season, whatever it may be. A lot of different services that we offer through Farm Rescue, but again, the goal is to get them through that one season and on to the next. So, it's an important service, and it's kind of a one-of-a-kind organization because we are providing that tangible in-field support. We're not just handing money over to folks to get them through, and I think it means a lot more in a lot of cases for us to come in and be able to just get in the field and get the job done and get them ready for that next season.
What are some of the services that you do offer? What are some of the things that you've done?
Yeah, so our main services include planting, haying. We have a couple tractors and balers that we can bale hay, and a hay conditioner that we can move hay bales as well. Obviously, harvest is a big part of what we do. We have combines, we have grain trucks, and we'll bring in headers along with the combines to help harvest whatever the crop may be. We do some hay hauling in cases of extreme drought. We've helped in cases of flooding, wildfires where cattle feed is destroyed, and we need to we kind of look at the resources that we have at our disposal, and a lot of times it's using our trucks to haul some hay into those folks. But we also do some livestock feeding assistance as well. We have a vertical mixer and a bale buster that our volunteers can come in and run and again feed cattle in a time where a farmer may be injured or a family member may be dealing with a health issue that's keeping them away from the farm and unable to feed their cattle. So it's try to offer a kind of a wealth of services to the farming and ranching communities just to help wherever we can.
And you mentioned the volunteers, and I think I saw on the website, is there a wait list to volunteer?
Yeah, we have a lot of volunteers that have signed on to do this over the years. Again, that first year, 2006, I think they had around 5 volunteers to tackle the 10 or so planting cases that first year. But we've had somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 volunteers throughout our history that have signed on to do this, and it's really tough to get everyone involved in it, and it's kind of a specialized thing too. So obviously, if you have a background in agriculture, that's very helpful to kind of move you up the list to get activated on a crew. But we have a lot of returning volunteers and seasoned veterans that have been doing this for well over a decade now. So it's they're familiar with the equipment and how things should operate, and they're great at training those new volunteers in as well. So it's kind of a good setup. We have that combination of seasoned veterans, but we're constantly again working in new volunteers to extend what we're doing and create some longevity in our work.
And when it comes to the farming community, do you find they very much come together for one another to help one another?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and that's what it's all about. Again, it's an age-old concept of neighbors helping neighbors, and it's exactly what we do at Farm Rescue. We just, our neighbors come from a little bit further up the road. And so often the neighbors are available to help in a time of crisis, to help a family through a difficult time. But, especially in this day and age, there's larger operations. Those family farms are kind of fewer and further between now. And those windows are smaller for their own operation too. So especially with like a bean harvest, this time of year, those windows are so small that the neighbors want to help and will help, but it creates additional strain on their own operation too. So with Farm Rescue, we're not only trying to kind of lift the burden on the family that's dealing with the crisis, but it's really lifting a burden on the community that wants to be there to help. When they see our equipment and our volunteers there lending a hand at that time of year that it really needs to happen, I think it provides some relief and definitely some appreciation from those rural communities, and knowing that the work is still getting done and they can focus on their own stuff too. And we're still getting meals delivered from those neighbors, from businesses in the community, bringing meals out to our volunteers. So there's support all around. And again, it's truly an incredible thing, just the way that the agricultural community supports one another.
How many applications would you get, say, in the run of a year?
It kind of varies. I mentioned the hay hauling efforts that aren't always in effect, but years where there's extreme drought in our service territory, or like I said, catastrophic flooding back in 2019, we had I think 127 loads of hay that we hauled to ranchers in Nebraska following some again just terrible flooding that happened down there. So obviously those application numbers are going to be higher in a year like that, but we'll be somewhere around I would say 30 to 40 harvests cases that we'll complete by the end of the year here too. And we've had, I think it was 25 to 30 planting applications that were approved and received assistance. So in a given year, it's usually anywhere from I'd say 70 to 100 farm families that we have the capacity to assist.
How does the process work, and how do you choose?
Yeah, so it is an application process. And again, I mentioned the three qualifiers: injury, illness, or natural disaster. So it's, farming and ranching are very dangerous professions. And as careful as you might be, accidents do happen. So we get a lot of, unexpected falls, injuries from equipment, even loss of limbs. They've caught in PTO shafts, augers, balers, different things. So it's those injuries, maybe a family member or the farmer themselves that's going through cancer treatments that is preventing them from carrying out their work. So again, we encourage all those folks to hop on our website. It's farmrescue.org. You can fill out an application there. That goes directly to our board of directors. We just ask for, a few other, bits of information. We're not, asking for money. It's a free service. So the application goes to the board of directors for review, and it's usually a very swift process because, especially this time of year, time is of the essence. So we want to expedite the approval on that. And when farmers and ranchers are reaching out to us for help, they truly need it. So it's, I would say a very, very large majority of the applications that we receive are approved for assistance. But a big part of what we do too is referrals, because there's such a tremendous amount of pride that goes along with farming and ranching too. And it's not always easy to ask for help themselves, I think, just because that pride runs so deep in what they're doing. And it's land that they've worked their entire lives. And we get that. So the referrals are a big part of what we do. And I think it means a lot to, know that a friend or a neighbor, spouse, just someone in the community is looking out for them. And they can reach out to us and let us know of a family that's going through a difficult time. And we're never just going to, just show up at their farm. We obviously will call and have, a conversation about, what we can offer, to their operation. And hopefully that can be of some help to them and maybe put their mind at ease a little bit. So again, it's probably 50-50 split with, families actually reaching out and filling out that application immediately compared to the referrals we get from just, someone else who's taken notice of the situation that they're in.
Now, you recently helped out a gentleman, Ray Glover. Can you talk to me about that situation?
Yeah, and I should mention I wasn't at that case myself, but I know Ray found himself in a pretty tough situation here. Had been working on a truck. I think he had it on jacks to change the tires. It sounded like, and the jack tipped and it fell and right on his torso, and he was trapped under that machine. And I think from the sounds of it, I think he had passed out from it, but came to and somehow managed to free himself. But quickly realized that something was wrong. He ended up with, several broken ribs, a collapsed lung, lacerations to his kidney and liver, and it was very touch and go there. I think even getting him to the hospital. But Ray's coming around. Obviously, the process of recovery is going to take a while, and it happened during a very crucial time of year again for his operation. So again, we brought in our combine, grain truck, several volunteers to bring in the family's corn crop, and again, just allow Ray to focus on recovery, because there's, again, this time of year, there's a lot to worry about in a normal year. And so I think it truly is a burden lifted and really just allows him to, focus a lot more on the recovery, because that's really what needs to happen.
That was Dan Erdman talking about Farm Rescue. For more information, you can visit farmrescue.org. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Time now for another trip around the country to take a look at what lawmakers and policymakers on the state level are doing that could affect you and your livelihood out on the road. And today we're going to visit 3 states for a look at 3 separate issues bouncing around, from a commercial driver training grant program and high-occupancy vehicle lanes to turnpike toll collection. Keith Goebel of Landline Magazine is here with all of the details. Every single last detail, Keith is going to have them for us. Keith, how you doing?
It's got everything that's going on anywhere in the U.S. right now.
You're on top of it.
As long as it's in a state capital.
Yeah, you know it.
I am going to try to tell you about a thousandth of that.
All right, well, let's see if we can beat that goal here. Starting with Wisconsin, with a bill that has driver training in mind, and the bill would get the ball rolling on a grant program. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Senate legislation that, interestingly enough, is they're continuing to work late into the year in Wisconsin, and a Senate committee has approved advancing a piece of legislation, that would require the Wisconsin, their Department of Workforce Development to set up and run a CDL training grant program. This legislation, it specifies, if you're a CDL training provider, that you must, satisfy the entry-level driver training requirements, again, that are set by FMCSA. And also, the legislation specifies that the grant, the amounts awarded for a grant could be up to 50% of the training costs, or $3,000, whichever is less, for each individual who is trained. But looking to address concerns, or with an eye on those folks who have interest in driving a truck, and in a way to help make it more affordable for them.
I imagine this issue is a new one for a lot of Wisconsin lawmakers. What have those discussions centered around with this bill? I know there are the new entry-level driver training rules that are in effect. How is this all being received there in the state capitol?
Well, one thing that has been pointed out, at least to this committee, as they kind of get the ball rolling there at the State House, is pointing out how much freight is moved by truck across the state. Overall, I think that the number that was provided for the committee is like over 660 million tons of freight in 2023, and 2/3 of that being trucks. They're responsible for it, and really giving lawmakers a good understanding of how significant it is, the trucking industry there in the state, and pointing out, with new federal guidelines that are in place for CDL training, setting up this grant program there in the state, and to make sure that that the folks who are doing the training, that they're worthwhile, essentially, of providing those grants to take care of that. That it is something that the state needs to look into. Also pointing out to lawmakers there that there are a lot of challenges in the industry, that not only is the industry having to compete for employees with other job markets. If you've got hurdles, if you can take away one of the hurdles, just the expense of going and doing the training, you're more likely to keep or have someone interested in an occupation, again, in the trucking industry. So just trying to remove some of the, there are a lot of challenges to getting started in the trucking industry, but trying to simplify matters, at least in the part of the training goes, is their hope overall in the long run. it's going to benefit trucking there in the state.
And real quick, this bill is on the move, I think, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's advanced from that Senate committee, which is going to allow it to get further consideration, how soon that happens, but further consideration on the Senate floor, which, it would then have to move over to the Assembly side. But again, hey, we're into the fall. Wisconsin, they have a full legislative session. I believe they're in year one of a 2-year session. So, I mean, as we're getting close to the end of the year, it doesn't mean that the bill's got to get done in that amount of time. It's just something that could be brought back up or continued next year if necessary.
We'll keep an eye on that. Moving a bit east to Michigan, 2 new laws in effect there that pave the way for high-occupancy vehicle lanes. The state doesn't have them right now, I don't believe, Keith, but they're about to.
Yeah, they already have flex lanes there in the state of Michigan. What they're looking to do is, expand that with this new law is going to allow them to have high-occupancy vehicle lanes, or I know you like to call them, carpool lanes? Or maybe that's more, I don't know, maybe that's their friendlier way of referring to them.
A little easier, rolls a little easier off the tongue, for sure.
The focus here is a stretch of I-75 in Oakland County, more specifically the city of Troy. The state has utilized federal funds to build these additional lanes. I think it's one lane northbound, 1 lane southbound along a stretch of road there again in the city of Troy. The funding, the intent with the federal money was to have high occupancy vehicle lanes, but the state hasn't allowed those. I mean, they're not authorized in current statute. So this legislation, really, they've waited for the project to be done. The project is done, but they can't open the lanes because their carpool lanes are not authorized. So they've had to get this legislation through the State House and onto the governor's desk and have her sign it so they can open those lanes. And that's what they've done now. That is a deal that they can now start on plans to open those lanes that they have been waiting for. Now, the concern had been that if they didn't authorize HOV lanes, that they might have to give the money back. And there's no guarantee that they'd have to give the money back, but the federal money was authorized for them to be HOV lanes. So they have averted that potential issue in authorizing these HOV lanes, which are supposed to be open along this 14-mile stretch again in Oakland County by the end of October.
Any day now. Let's end here with a couple minutes left, Keith, in Pennsylvania, where the Turnpike Commission it wants its money, and state lawmakers are trying to help them get it. We're talking unpaid tolls here, and there's a lot of that apparently going around in Pennsylvania, Keith.
Everybody wants their money.
Yeah, just show me the money.
That is one thing I have found, especially covering transportation.
People like money, and they want money. Yes. Universal truth.
Yeah, with Pennsylvania Turnpike, the issue has been really going back to whenever they went into a cashless system, and they got rid of a lot of employees here a few years back. They have found that as a result, they're getting a lot less money in tolls. People are not paying those tolls, and which I know is shocking to probably no one. But I mean, the numbers, there was about a year-long period up to about middle of 2022. They had $155 million in unpaid tolls, and that amount increased the year after that, going up to this spring is $170 million in unpaid tolls. So they're looking for ways to get that money back. There's legislation that the Senate there in Pennsylvania approved unanimously that would allow the state to tap into lottery winnings. Those folks who if they win in excess of $2,500 in the lottery. Those folks would have that amount garnished from their lottery winnings. Also, maybe the more likely way that they're going to be able to get money from people who owe the Turnpike is folks who have state income tax returns. That amount to cover the Turnpike tolls that have not been paid would be deducted from those tax returns.
Money, money, money. Keith, You're always on the money. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Yes, thank you.
You can keep up to date with the latest news from your state at landline.media. Just click on the news tab at the top of the page and scroll down to News by State. That's our time for today. We appreciate you spending a little time with us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
My kids.
chrome,
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.